Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the launch of the Institute for Intelligent Systems at the University of Johannesburg. Now, to officially kickstart off things for us, I'd like to call upon the UJ Choir to bless us with beautiful music. Please take it away. That was the highly acclaimed UJ Choir. Thank you so much for the beautiful music. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once more, welcome to the Institute for Intelligent Systems at the University of Johannesburg. My name is Phumzile. I am your programs director for this evening, and I'm literally twisting my fingers that you enjoy your stay with us. Now, when Professor Churi Dzimarwala was inaugurated as the VC at UJ, we started hearing terms such as the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We started even hearing big words such as blockchain, artificial intelligence, which is one of the reasons why the IIS was established in 2016 within the university to act as a catalyst for UJ's strategy to drive global excellence and stature. And I assure you that this evening will be a clear indication that the Fourth Industrial Revolution is real. What am I talking about? Well, I am not hosting this event alone. I am too young to do such. I am with my co-host. Her name is Pepper. Now, Pepper is a robotic humanoid. Good evening, Pepper. How are you?
Welcome, humans.
I am good. So you are a robotic humanoid. I mean, I know with me, when I'm standing in front of a crowd, I tend to be nervous. Do you feel the same as well?
The Fourth Industrial Revolution represents a fundamental change in the way humans live, work, and relate to each other. It's not based on a single technology, but on the confluence of multiple technologies.
Okay, Pepper, I understand. So to officially start off the event for us, I'd like to call upon our first speaker. Now, our first speaker is the Deputy Vice Chancellor in Research and Internationalization at the University of Johannesburg. He will be talking to us about the strategic context of the Fourth Industrial Revolution in terms of research, internationalization, and innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Professor Swareb Sinha.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and really a privilege to see you here this afternoon. And I was a little bit worried when I saw Pepper here, because I thought that Phumzile is going to ask Pepper to do my presentation, and I know that some of you might have found that quite interesting. I must say I was very amused, and Dr. Vukuza earlier pointed out that it does appear that Pepper is looking very good among our choir. And I was wondering of whether that in fact becomes an opportunity or not, seeing the resonance that Pepper was finding with the beautiful music. But I'm sure you will agree with me that the choir did a wonderful job, and perhaps you should give a round of applause to our choir. Ladies and gentlemen, I thought I'll give you a little bit of positioning in terms of the Fourth Industrial Revolution before inviting our Vice Chancellor and introducing the Vice Chancellor, whom many of you know, but I do think that he's a person that is worthy of multiple introductions, because through his introductions he also inspires a journey that a number of individuals would wish to pursue. The University of Johannesburg, in our own context, we developed our strategy in 2013, which was a strategy for global excellence and stature. And the strategy was enabled through a number of strategic objectives, and these included excellence in teaching and learning, excellence in research and innovation, international profile for global excellence and stature, national, global, and reputation management and staff and student-friendly learning and living environment, and a number of other strategic objectives. But when we started to reflect on these strategic objectives in our own journey, particularly when we had the new Vice Chancellor, Professor Marwala, join us, I must say that I often introduce him as Vice Chancellor and Principal, and then somebody says, we were expecting two people. So in a way, we have a two-in-one in our approach for the Vice Chancellor and Principal. The Vice Chancellor has in fact just returned. In fact, I was engaging with him at 11 last night when he was in Dubai, returning from Harvard University, where he had the chance to engage with the university on a presentation. So we really appreciate he's had obviously a long day that he could join us. But the question that he asked the institution was that the things I said in terms of teaching and learning and being excellent in it, about being excellent in research and innovation and internationalization, the question that we should be asking is what it is that makes us different as a university, what it is that we would like to be known for. And his own background happens to be in the area of computational intelligence, which is an area that is shaping up rapidly the future of work. It is an area that is shaping up what we think will be the future, and for us to be the ones that can dynamically shape that future. So we looked at a whole journey of an entire year looking at how do we actually make the fourth industrial revolution and how do we contextualize our own strategy for global excellence and stature in the context of the fourth industrial revolution. We devolved this through a bottom-up, a top-down, and an inside-out approach in terms of developing this strategy. There is a saying that when it comes to the second and first industrial revolutions, we were taught to think inside the box. The third industrial revolution sometimes said that, it's not only about computing, is it about thinking also outside the box? And I think that the fourth industrial revolution brings about our ability to think out of the box, but sometimes without the box. And you see this in the way the technology diminishes, it embeds, and it eventually disappears. And when it does so, then you know that technology has in fact become a very integral part, as the Vice Chancellor often defines, as coexistence between human and machine. The university's, our strategy is a multidisciplinary strategy. It is embedded very much from a societal point of view. We don't just want to do technology for the sake of technology, but technology that brings about interconnectivity to ultimately transform society. So in a way, we look at what is the intersection between the fourth industrial revolution and the Sustainable Development Goals. Professor Parekh, our Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic, often reminds us that technology in a country like South Africa has the ability to bring about, to increase the digital divide. So how do we ensure that right from the outset that we have an approach that in fact ensures that technology does not bring about does not enhance inequality? The university in its strategy has invested in a very big way, and the multiple P's that we are involved with is engaging in terms of resourcing, in terms of people, developing people, and the university has committed in a very large way to a tune of over 500 million rands over the next 5 years in terms of over 100 postdoctoral fellows, 100 plus graduate PhD and master's students. And of course, we are looking very importantly to partner with a number of you who are here so that we can ensure that our projects and our approach finds meaning ultimately with you and not to or for you. We are also interested in patents, we are interested in products, and in fact the university will be launching its university's company in a few weeks. And we are interested in those areas in terms of partnerships, which is strategic for you as industry. We're interested in working with areas of water where we can work with artificial intelligence and other technologies that support the fourth industrial revolution, such that we can get gains in water 4.0, in intelligent telecommunications, in the areas of energy, in the areas of sanitation. And as you hear this, you correctly do hear that we are very interested in areas that ultimately impact humanity. And that's where we're going with our journey. With these words, I would like to acknowledge and introduce the Vice Chancellor. And I must say that that I saw an article, Vice Chancellor, in the South African Journal of Science. And this was a very interesting article because it talked about a university Vice Chancellor that has really not only inaugurated the journey of the fourth industrial revolution for a South African university, but for South Africa. And it was quite amusing as I read this article because it was written, I think it was written by an author who happens to be in one of our sister institutions. And this author did everything apart from the fact he completely was in awe of the University of Johannesburg. But somehow he did not mention your name, Professor Marwala. And so I decided to help this author by pointing out exactly and reducing the confusion by directly pointing to the inaugural speech that in fact he was referring to. Nonetheless, I could see the itch was there and in the favor of the University of Johannesburg. A few days ago, the President of the Republic, President Ramaphosa, was talking about a Vice-Chancellor that was talking about a form of artificial intelligence in the year 2004, which was also the year in which Professor Marwala was recognized for the Order of the Mapungubwe. And this arena was an area of artificial intelligence, and so Professor Marwala was in fact recognized for a vision far ahead of the times. But we find it greatly complimentary that he in fact did so, as it helps in positioning our institution in favor of that. Want to give you a bit more background in terms of his academic qualification. He is the Vice-Chancellor and Principal of the University since the 1st of January 2018. He occupied the position of Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Research Internationalization. His title was much bigger. I have reduced the title for my own simplification. He was Saatchi Chair in Systems Engineering at another university, apparently not so big as ours. I don't talk about other universities. Of course, you have correctly recognized that, even if they're in our province. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, magna cum laude from Case Western Reserve University, a Master of Engineering from the University of Pretoria, a PhD in Engineering from the University of Cambridge, completed an Advanced Management program at Columbia University and a program for leadership development at Harvard Business School. There is a lot more in his CV, but it's important to recognize that the Vice-Chancellor, in fact, in the area of computational intelligence, in what he often terms as mainstream technical disciplines of artificial intelligence, continues to publish to this day and supervise graduate students as well as postdoctoral fellows. And I think that's really complimentary for people who work in this space. With these words, please join your hands in welcoming Professor Chiliti Marwala.
Sanbonan, I have to adjust the mic because I am taller. Molweni. You sound like you're trying to correct me. Sanbonan. Dumelan. Goeienaand. You see, every time I say goeienacht, Professor Schwartz corrects me. I would like to acknowledge the presence of the member of the Executive Committee, Professor Engineer Parek. You are a veteran. And being a veteran means you have been here for many, many years. I see Professor Schwartz. I also see a member of Council, Professor Andre Stradom. I see, I have to acknowledge Professor Sorab Sina, Nolita Nolwazi, members of the ELG, Professor Kinta Berger, a mathematics logician. I thought mathematics implies logic, but that was obviously not enough. Maria from our library, our MC, Pumzile. Pumzile is one of our dynamic announcers in UJFM. I listen to UJFM. I have done a comparison between UJFM and Metro FM. And I think, I know UJFM is a distant first, and Metro FM is a distant second. I also would like to acknowledge academics from our sister institution. I used to be a professor there. I saw Professor Lee Berger and his famous wife, Professor Jackie Berger. She's a radiologist. Jackie, I understand that artificial intelligence is going to replace radiologists because machines are reading medical images better than machines. I also would like to acknowledge the Dean of Engineering, Professor Mashao. Actually, Professor Mashao probably is the first South African to get a PhD in artificial intelligence. When he was receiving his PhD in artificial intelligence, despite my white hair, I was actually still an undergraduate student. I did visit Professor Mashao when he was at that small university in Rhode Island, Brown University, where he did his PhD. He never had time for me because he thought I was too young to interact with a PhD student. So times have changed, Professor Mashao. So, good evening. We are today going to launch the Institute of Intelligence System. Of course, the reason why we're doing this is because we are living in the era of the fourth industrial revolution. So I was at Harvard in the last few days, and I got a call from the Vice Chancellor of the University of the Witwatersrand. And he says, where are you? I say, I am at Harvard. I am speaking I have been invited to speak on the fourth industrial revolution and its impact on law, on data. What are we going to do with data in the continent of Africa? And the Vice Chancellor of the University of Witwatersrand is a very dynamic man. He used to be, I succeeded him as a Deputy Vice Chancellor as a Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research. So, in a sense, Professor Sorab, he is your grand Deputy Vice Chancellor. So he says to me, no man, you should stop talking about the fourth industrial revolution. And of course it was following up on a conversation that I had with him before. He says, you should stop talking about the fourth industrial revolution and start talking about university funding. I said, no, Vice Chancellor, you are much better at speaking about university funding than me. I will continue to speak about the fourth industrial revolution. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time for us to be living in the era of the fourth industrial revolution. Elon Musk was quoted, I think it was a few weeks back, and Elon Musk is from South Africa. He graduated from Pretoria Boys High. And he was saying that this is the best time to be alive, because it is the best time to basically create. At the turn of the previous century, there was a young man in Germany, Max Planck. He went to, you would know Max Planck, Professor Andre. Max Planck is the father of quantum physics. Hands down. He's the person who introduced the concept of a quanta. Not only did he introduce the concept of a quanta, he actually named it. He was a great namer of things, Max Planck. He actually named the theory of relativity. Of course, Einstein was the creator of the theory of relativity, but he never actually named it. If you looked at the original article on the theory of relativity, it was about electromagnetism. And then Max Planck said, but you are using the principles of relative motion. Why don't you call it the theory of relativity? So Max Planck wanted to study physics. And he went to, I don't know whether it was Summerfield. I think it was Summerfield. And said, I want to study, or it can't be Summerfield. Summerfield was a very inventive man. He went to some professor. And this professor said to him, everything that needs to be discovered in physics is already discovered. Please look for another discipline. That was before the invention of quantum mechanics. It was before the invention of relativity. It was before the invention of general gravitation. It was before the discovery of semiconductors. So everything that needs to be discovered for those who are still young in mind enough to go and invent many things. The things that need to be invented have not yet invented. So we are living in the golden age. So this fourth industrial revolution is very important because machines now can discover things. We used to think that discovery is limited to human beings. For the first time, we're able to build machines that are able to discover things. I think you can give science a round of applause. And the reason for that is because we are, for the first time, designing machines that do the sort of things that are done by human beings. We are designing machines that are able to understand a natural language. Professor Mashau did a PhD in using Markov chain Monte Carlo or hidden Markov models for speech. Of course, we know now that deep learning does that better than what you did in your PhD, Professor Mashau. But hidden Markov models are still very, very important in science. So these machines can be able to listen to us. We hear that machines are actually listening to us. Your phone is listening to you. We hear that because your phone is listening to you, if you go to your advert, the advert that comes through Google, they tend to be around your conversations. Of course, if you are speaking isiXhosa, like Nolwazi, it will not be able to hear you because the isiXhosa copper is not yet well represented in the fourth industrial revolution. And this is a challenge to all of us to develop a library that is going to understand our languages. So the fourth industrial revolution is here. It is driven by many technologies. Of course, we can see robots. Pepper. Who am I? Pepper does not know. But if I were to ask any one of you, you probably will know. So you can see what machines can do and what human beings can do. Of course, it's a simplification of the facts. Pepper, are you from Nedbank? Pepper, who are the directors of Nedbank? He does not know me. I am a director of Nedbank. You see, we still have a long way to go. So because of artificial intelligence, we are able to build machines that are intelligent. I did a PhD in artificial intelligence many, many years ago, from 1997 to year 2000. And by the way, The reason why I did a PhD in artificial intelligence, I arrived at a college called St. John's College at Cambridge. And then I was sitting next to somebody called Nando de Freitas. He's actually a South African based at Google DeepMind. And I asked him, so Nando's, not to be confused with food. It's not Nando's, it's Nando. I said, Nando, tell me. It's a shortcut for Fernando. What are you doing a PhD on? He said, artificial intelligence. I said, hey, that sounds quite cool. I'm going to go and do a PhD on that. And when I came back and President Thabo Mbeki hosted a dinner for Mark Shuttleworth when he came back from space, I met Derek Hanekom. I can mention his name because he says he doesn't mind. He says, what did you do your PhD on when you were at Cambridge? I said, artificial intelligence. He paused for a moment and he says, but wouldn't it have been more logical to do a PhD in real intelligence rather than artificial intelligence? So artificial intelligence is here. We can build machines that are intelligent. We can build machines that are able to do the sort of things that are done by human beings. But these machines cannot get tired. They cannot join COSATU or any other union. They can work for 24 hours and there will not be any issues to do with human rights. Maybe we should start thinking about whether machines must have rights. This morning I met a young lady, one of our students here, who is working on the psychoanalysis of robots. Of course, for those of you who studied psychology as I did, I took two psychology classes. We know an Austrian thinker called Freud. I might not be pronouncing it correctly. Yes, Professor Engineer Parek, I speak 11 official languages. So he is the one who discovered psychoanalysis. And this young lady wants to do exactly the same, the psychology, maybe not psychoanalysis because robots don't really get tired. Pepper, do you get tired? I think Pepper is tired. They do get tired, Pepper, I suspect you do not hear my accent because you have been quite rude to me. You have not been replying any of the communication that I have communicated to you. Pepper is confused. He speaks sign language. Pepper, I watched the funeral proceedings of Umadiba. So I'm not going to try to do sign language. I can see those of you who are old and they remember what actually happened. So artificial intelligence is basically driven by the confluence of computer science, engineering, psychology, cognitive psychology, and we use this to build machines that actually can be able to be intelligent as we are. The University of Johannesburg, in fact, this center will be launching a book titled Artificial Intelligence, my first artificial intelligence book, Artificial Intelligence and Learning, for kids. And we hope we'll do it at the library. It was written here at the University of Johannesburg. Because the concept of intelligence in machines are actually quite simple. You have data, you have something that processes data, and you have a decision. Very, very simple. And for you to be able to make that machine learn, you have to reward it when it learns correctly. You have to punish it when it learns incorrectly. And in psychology, it is called reinforcement learning. All these concepts, you can be able to explain these concepts to young children and they will be able to understand. The mathematics that you see is really detailed. And you will not be able to write the mathematics unless you understand the concept. So this is really what artificial intelligence is all about. The other technology that is driving the fourth industrial revolution is blockchain. We don't know who discovered blockchain. He has a Japanese name, but when you look at his logs, he seemed to be using British English. And he was sleeping when the people in that time zone were sleeping. And he was awake when the people in that time zone were awake. Of course, there are many people who have tried to claim that they are him, but they are not him. And blockchain is able to, for the first time, we are able to resolve in a computer the issue of group decision making. Because you create as a group a password that locks a transaction. And for you to go and change that transaction, you have to go and convince the majority of the members of that group, which makes it very difficult for you to create your own log that did not exist. So this is the era in which we live in. So where are we in South Africa? Where are we when it comes to the issues of artificial intelligence? Where are we when it comes to the issue of blockchain? Professor Wang, please stand up so that you can be acknowledged. An expert in artificial intelligence. Please give him a round of applause. He is one of our professors. So, and Professor Babu, also stand up. An expert on artificial intelligence. I recruited him from India, but I was a PhD supervisor of his younger brother. So you can also give me a round of applause. So, this is the era in which we live in. So where are we in South Africa? Are we able to create artificial intelligence that will be able to solve our problems? Do we have the expertise to be participants of the fourth industrial revolution, not observers? What does it take for us to be able to create expertise in artificial intelligence? By the way, all the technologies that are used in artificial intelligence today were in existence in the 80s. Artificial intelligence is not a young discipline. It has been around for 70 years. But there were many elements that were not around. The first one, data was often expensive. And once you had it, you could not be able to store it much more efficiently. When I was a PhD student, during the time of the Stiffy drives, Nolwazi, you would not know what I'm talking about. Certainly, Pumzile, you don't know. You actually think I am talking about a movie. A Stiffy drive was something that used to store information. It used to store 1.4 megabytes. You can't even put a picture on that. And then came the zip drive. So the revolution in the storage of information was very, very important for the fourth industrial revolution. The second revolution was our ability to process that data. When I was doing my master's degree, you could not run more than one program on your PC. If you had opened Excel, no, it was not called Excel, it was called Lotus 123. And there was no 4, Pumzile. It ended up there. And you wanted to write a document. There was a program called Wordperfect. You had to close one program to open another. And when a Pentium 1 came, and you could run 2 things at the same time, it was a big revolution. Can you imagine the internet age if you could not open a web page before you close whatever you are doing? So that revolution was very important for the fourth industrial revolution. The ability to process that data actually became big, and that phenomena is what is called Moore's law. Every 2 years, the computational power of computers actually double. A 387 computer will do nothing today. It's almost useless. So all these things are what has given us the fourth industrial revolution. Now, as South Africa, where are we on the collection of data? And when I was at Harvard just a few days ago, this was one of the big issues. That data, you have these big companies such as Facebook, such as Google, such as Twitter, that collect data in South Africa without any form of a regulatory framework. Not only do they collect this data, they actually use it to make money for themselves. They come to you and they say, Sodam, I'm going to take all your data in exchange for the Gmail account. And Professor Sodap Sina actually accepted that deal. I know he has a Gmail account. He accepted that deal, and they even know where he is as we speak. It's not only Professor Sina who accepted that deal. Professor Engineer Parek, they say, Professor Parek, we will take all your data, including when you sleep and when you are awake. We want to know all that information in exchange for the Facebook account. And Professor Engineer Parek says, this is a great deal. I'm taking your Facebook account. We do not have a single company in South Africa that, in fact, in the continent for that matter, that is collecting data at even 5% of the rate at which Facebook collects data from us. So are we ready for the fourth industrial revolution? We can't be ready if we are not collecting data. Are we ready for the fourth industrial revolution? We can't be ready if we do not have computational infrastructure that will be able to analyze large amounts of data. And this is really where we are as the Institute of Intelligent Systems. We established this institute so that we are ready, we become ready for the fourth industrial revolution. So that we are able to train people who will be able to understand how to create our own versions of Twitter or Facebook. Okay, not the exact copy, And I've gone to countries where you see exact copies of Facebook. We were in Russia not too long ago. Even the colors look like Facebook. So we want our people to be innovative. But for them to be innovative, they must have the capability to be able to create things as they are. They should be able to create things as they are for them to be able to create things that do not exist already. So this is one of the reasons why we do this. Now, how do we do this? I'll go back to the skills of the fourth industrial revolution. It requires multidisciplinary skills. It is important for you to be able to understand the concept of optimization for you to be able to do machine learning. And you are not going to be able to understand the concept of optimization unless you understand Newton's Raphson method. How many of you know what Newton's Raphson method is? Of course, Professor Wang, you are just shy to raise your hand. I know you know these things, you know. We are not going to be able to do that unless we train our people in the art and the practice of mathematics. Optimization is very key to machine learning. We are not going to be able to create artificial intelligent algorithm unless we understand the concept of a function. How many of you understand the concept of a function? Professor Stradom, I know you know what a function is. You just don't raise your hand, you know. You can't do physics without understanding the concept of a function. All these things are very, very important. I have to say this because I sit in meetings where people will tell you that the fourth industrial revolution is not about technology. It is about technology. You can't be able to do it well unless you understand mathematics. But you also have to understand psychology. You have to understand the concept of reinforcement learning. And reinforcement learning is one of the most beautiful concepts that has been discovered in psychology. And it should not be, and many people do this, it should not be confused with the theory of conditioning, Pavlov's theory of conditioning. I was confused about it. Because sometimes you do feel that you can't condition something. Obviously you can't condition something without reinforcement learning. You have to reinforce a behavior. So those two things are not the same thing, but one depends on another. Very, very important. I guess what I'm trying to say is that for us to be able to, for this center to succeed, we shall have to create a system of multidisciplinary education, where the people who are studying computer science must study psychology, must study sociology, must study anthropology, must study all these things that in the third and the second and the first industrial revolution we thought were not relevant for people who want to be in technology. In artificial intelligence, there is an algorithm called ant colony optimization. So ant colony optimization was introduced by an Italian researcher called Garino, who created this by looking at ants. And we really applauded him. We were very, very impressed with his theory. But when we dug deeper, we realized that no, this algorithm actually was created, the idea of ant intelligence actually came from South Africa, from Eugene Marais. He wrote a book called The Sylph and the Meal. I have a copy in Afrikaans. I bought it at Exclusive Books. You should go and buy it. It's a fantastic book because it was the first book that introduced the concept of intelligent theory. If you find somebody studying ants, would you think that person is a computer scientist? No. But if you are going to design an algorithm called ant colony optimization, you better go and study the intelligence of ants, because those are the basis of that algorithm. And there are many other things around us that are not in the domain of computer science, the domain of engineering, that basically make us come up with better design. The notorious design, and I'm going to call it notorious, it's a notorious design, but quite a famous one, was the use of the shape of a beetle to design a car. You still remember that car called the Beetle? The reason why I say it is it was a good innovation, I just don't like the guy who came up with it. Yeah. I don't know whether you know the story about how it came about. Two people were having lunch or dinner. It was Adolf Hitler and Ferdinand Porsche, who is the person who actually designed it. And then apparently Adolf Hitler, whom I loathe quite severely, drew this on a napkin. And that was the car. Probably one of the most sold shape of a car. And you have had a reincarnation of it, you know. Because this phenomenon, nature is the best teacher. Because all these shapes were evolved over millions and millions of years. Whatever you see today, Professor Lee Berger, you can correct me if I'm lying. Whatever you see today is an evolutionary success, isn't it? Whatever you see today is an evolutionary success, which means, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a success in the future, but it is an evolutionary success because it has survived to be where it is, you know. Because all of us descend, we have a direct link to that singular cell organism that existed millions of years ago. Unbroken chain. So, we have to look at nature and we have to see how we can be able to position our society in the fourth industrial revolution. And multidisciplinary education is very, very important. I know I have spoken for too long, and if you don't stop me, Pumzile, I can speak for another hour. But I am glad that we are here today launching this institute that is going to take not only the University of Johannesburg and not only South Africa, but our continent into the fourth industrial revolution. I would like to acknowledge Professor Babu. Please stand up so that and take a bow so that you can be. Can all the people who are members of this institute just stand up so that you could be acknowledged? Professor Wang, you are a member. Professor Engineer Parek, you are not a member of this institute. Who are the other members? Where are your members?
The boys.
Very, very good.
And the students and everything.
Even the students, you are members, please stand up. Of course, you are the most important members. Why can't you stand? This is actually going to be very, very exciting. And we are looking forward. One of the former student members who was doing a master's in this institute quite a number of years ago, Sibusiso Wakana, is now completing a PhD in Beijing on the use of artificial intelligence to detect rhinos when they are in distress. And once you detect that, you can reasonably suspect that there might be an intruder around, and you can prevent the extinction of that species. So it is very important for us to participate. Thank you very much, Ngiyabonga. Baya danke.
Ndikolebuwa ngamanda bo Prof. That was our Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Johannesburg, Professor Chiridzi Marwala, who is also the Deputy Chair for the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which was started by our President, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. Please do not forget, we are very active on social media and we'd really appreciate your interaction there. So we have two hashtags, that is hashtag UJIIS Launch and hashtag UJ4IR. Now, before I call on the next speaker, I think we should find out from Pepper if she really understands the concept of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Pepper, what do you know about the Fourth Industrial Revolution?
The Fourth Industrial Revolution represents a fundamental change in the way humans live, work, and relate to each other. It's not based on a single technology, but on the confluence of multiple technologies.
Impressive. Now, as much as we are launching the IIS, I think it's very important that we understand what the IIS is all about. Now, I'd like to call upon the next speaker, that is Professor Babu Paul, who is the Director for the Institute for Intelligent Systems at the University of Johannesburg.
Thank you. Good evening. No, it's very difficult to speak on Fourth Industrial Revolution after Professor Marwala has spoken. It is something like a pastor coming to speak after the bishop has already spoken. Yeah, so, but having said that, my speech will give you a brief idea of what we do, but just to set the tone. So at UJ we no longer talk about the first three. Other universities do talk. So we go directly to the fourth. Now the third, if you see, the third ended at 2010, people say. 2010 was a very important year, around 2010. Now, because 2010, one very important thing happened was the World Cup in South Africa. In 2011, the term first was coined, that was Industry 4.0. The Fourth Industrial Revolution was not coined then even, because it was Professor Wolfgang from the Center for Artificial Intelligence who coined the term Industry 4.0 in 2011, and basically what he meant then was basically a smart factories. But then also the Fourth Industrial Revolution did not happen. Then the term Fourth Industrial Revolution was coined by, people say that it is by Professor Klaus Schwab in 2015. So in 2015, it is no longer, the technology was not only in the industries, but it went more forward and to the life and society itself. So now what led to this? So one of the reasons that led to this is basically the growth in data. In 2015, it was told that the data in 2015, 90% of the data of 2015 of the world was generated in 2013 and 14. So you can understand that the rate at which the data is growing. So that same study shows that the data is growing at 40% per year. So you can understand that how it is growing. There is another study by IDC which shows that the data in 2025 will be around 163 trillion gigabytes. Now just to refresh the memory, trillion means 10 to the power 12. So you can understand the amount of data. Now everything is data. As Professor Marwala was saying, that Facebook is data, Gmail is data. So it looks that they do very good pro bono job. But how do they sell the data? That is another thing. Because today when I was inviting you, I was getting all the names from different places to invite you. I could have easily asked Facebook that this is my profile, please find out whom I should invite in a radius of 100 kilometers. And Facebook would have suggested at least 80% of your names. Because there is common, all the data of yours is already with Facebook. And Facebook would have taken money from me for doing that. So that is where the data is being used for, to make money. So we generally in South Africa don't monetize data in such a big way as the other countries are doing. Now another is data is becoming the new gold. This is for the business. Because you can understand that the businesses have already started investing hugely, not only on the processing of data, but also on storing of data. And also on replicating data, communicating data between their different enterprises. Now, this can be understood, again, if you see at this graph. This is the graph which shows that the increase in the data science and big data jobs. You see that around 2010, the job is increasing. And it is going on increasing now even. So that means data is one of the main drivers which is doing. Before, for any industry or any government or anyone to succeed, these were the things that were required. That is, you need a capital resource, you needed a human resource, and you needed a natural resource. But today, you need another resource, that is the data resource. This data resource governs how you will spend your capital resource, how you will spend your natural resource, and how you will use your human resource. So data is becoming really very, very important. Now this is a very interesting quote that I like. That is, some 60 years back, Sir Winston Churchill was saying that study history, in history lies the secrets of the statecraft. But if in today's world, you don't need to study any history, you just study data. Once you study data, you will be successful. Now, what did this do? This brought in a paradigm shift in the work. So, what has happened is basically this. So this is basically the graph which shows your skill sets, lower skill sets and higher skill sets, and this is the cognitive level. So there is a gap happening in between. That is where the job is being replaced. Generally the job with the lower skill set is not being replaced, and the job with very high skill set is not being replaced. Now we may be thinking that we are at the high skill set, so we are safe. But if you go by the Moravec's paradox, then it is easy to replace those jobs over there than to replace the jobs over here, which are of lower skill sets. So basically at the university, at the Institute for Intelligent Systems, what we are trying to do is we are trying to shrink that blue region by increasing that red region of high skill sets, so that we train more people with high skill sets, and the blue region, that is the job replacement space, is reduced. Now there has been another paradigm shift in the education sector even. Now before, it was basically 200 years back or 250 years back, education was for the elite. Now, at the present age, the education is for the mass. But we need to start thinking about post-mass. Because we are teaching in mass, that is electrical engineering in mass, 70 students. English honors in mass, 70 students. Maybe time has come for us to think about post-mass, where I may be wanting to study mathematics, English, and maybe computer networks. So this post-mass thinking should be starting now. Now another is that the cognitive flexibility, that is where we need to assist. We need to, as an institute, we need to come up with, and we have done some work on assisting people to pick up new cognition, and so that they can have a cognitive flexibility and learn new knowledge. Now, the Institute for Intelligent Systems, that is catalyzing 4IR in the university. So we are basically one of the main drivers of the 4IR initiatives within the university. And we work on 3 pillars. One of the pillars is research, one is teaching and learning, and the other is the enterprise pillar. Now in the enterprise pillar, we work with different entities. It is not the holistic view. There are other entities which we work with. So I should have put a ... somewhere over there. Now these are some of the entities that we work on. We work on entities with their problems, solving with the 4IR technologies. So these are some of the entities that we work on. Now in the teaching and learning, we have courses, some continuous education program courses, and what Professor the VC was saying is that the disciplinary barrier should be broken. So all these courses that you are seeing is multidisciplinary in nature. So we have collaborated with other disciplines. For example, this is collaboration with AIS, the Department of Applied Information Sciences, and we came up with a continuous education program on computational intelligence for industry. We collaborated with the Department of Accountancy to come up with an online course on 4IR in accountancy. We are in preparation, and we will be launching another course on blockchain. Because as Professor Marwala was saying, that it is a confluence of different technologies. Basically, blockchain, to me, is basically a confluence of computer networks, game theory, and cryptography. So if you combine these two, you can come up with something like a blockchain. Now, we work very closely with Resolution Circle in terms of training a large number of people in a small amount of time with the latest technologies. Then these are two of our courses which are coming very soon. One is Masters in Artificial Intelligence and Masters in Financial Engineering. So these are all multidisciplinary courses. For example, in Masters of Artificial Intelligence, there are people from health sciences who are teaching the structure of the brain. Similarly, in Masters in Financial Engineering is also a multidisciplinary course. Now, in the research, so when we talk about research, we always use that word, but not limited to. So whatever I am writing over here, it does not mean that we are limited to only these things. So we have our master's student, we have our doctoral students, postdoctoral fellows. So we work in areas like cyber physical systems. So we have developed products which one of our students will be presenting after me, and you will see the live demonstration after this. Then we work on optimization, machine learning, AI, then Internet of Things. Then we work a lot with finance and banking data, because now you can connect the two. That is our research pillar and the enterprise pillar. Then we work on policy reviews and on development of policies with different government enterprises. And we also host the Center for Telecommunication, who are working in the area of 5G and power line communications. So before ending, so this is a very good saying. People who change after the change will survive. People who change with the change will succeed. And people who cause the change will lead. So in the fourth industrial revolution, it is up to us that whether we will cause the change or whether we will follow the change. So thank you. Danke. Kiale boka.
Thank you so much, Prof. That was the director for IIS officially introducing the Institute to us. Please do not forget we are active on social media and we'd really appreciate your interaction. Hashtag IIS Launch and also hashtag UJ4IR. Now, our next speaker is Professor Maria from UP, who is the Executive Director at the University of Johannesburg Library and Information Center. Now, Prof. Maria will be touching on society and the fourth industrial revolution. I mean, we have questions as the society saying, what is the fourth industrial revolution? What does it mean to us? And how do we prepare ourselves as the society?
Sanibonani, Dumelang, good evening. I think the fourth industrial revolution is incredibly exciting, but I find the term industrial revolution just a little problematic because it makes it sound as though it's something that is related to industry, when it's very much a social revolution, it's a knowledge revolution, and it's a revolution about how we are in the world. A couple of weekends ago, I was visiting with some friends and they told me the story, which is true. They have a double-story house and somebody came along to clean the windows, and so there was a ladder against the wall. And their 5-year-old daughter and her friend decided it would be great fun to go up the ladder, and they climbed onto the roof of the house. After a while, the wife, who was at home ostensibly looking after the children, realized that the children were on the roof of the house, and she now had to negotiate for them to come back down. And they said to me, well, if we had something like pepper because they know that I'm really interested in 4IR, looking after our child, perhaps the children would never ever have got to the roof of the house. So I think that there are lots of ways in which technology is going to augment our lives. But what I'm particularly interested in are questions around how we as people are going to be in this new world. So one of the challenges is psychologically. What is it going to mean? How are we going to relate to one another? The other big challenge is our social media and the social media bubbles that we can create. So we think we are living in a particular reality, but it's only the reality of what we choose to see. So we know things like Cambridge Analytica, where information is pushed to us because, as the previous speakers have all been saying, this is a revolution about data. So one of the things that I like to do, like Prof. Mawala, is go to exclusive books. And I like to get my cup of coffee and sit down and page through books on leadership, particularly. And one of the things I've noticed is a real change in the types of books on leadership that are out there. So in the 1980s, you used to have lots of books about how to develop a system that will work most optimally. In the 1990s, there were lots of habits to change the world. So we had 7 habits for highly effective leaders. Then somehow in the 1980s, in the 2000s, we started to think a little bit differently. And now the bookshelves are full of books about being vulnerable. Brené Brown's Dare to Lead, Robin Sharman's The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And I've sort of been reflecting on this. What does this say about us and the Fourth Industrial Revolution? And I think if we look at what the Fourth Industrial Revolution does, is it creates a world in which, well, in my life, for example, the computer tells me 15 minutes to go before the next meeting. Then we have an Aura system or an Oracle system or some other system at the university that tells me when I have to approve something, where I have to put in my leave, what I have to do. My entire life is automated with fantastic workflows. And every now and again, there's a bit of a problem. And I have to call my staff together and we have to discuss something. And that goes well in some cases and not so well in other cases. And what people like Brené Brown are saying is that in the workplace, we have lost the everyday small interactions because we now do that over email. We don't have to speak to each other about a workflow because it's all automated. And so from a humanities perspective, one of the real challenges with the Fourth Industrial Revolution is how to be human with one another. And the most important challenge is how to be human in a very short space of time. So now we have to learn how to be authentic. We have to learn how to be vulnerable with one another. And we have to do it all in a very short space of time so that we can go back to our computers, back to our little bubbles that tell us what we have to do and how we have to do it. And this leads to a lot of anxiety, and it leads to a whole new way of being in the world. We haven't found the answers to these questions. And I think it's one of the really exciting things that lies ahead for us as a university, is what is going to be the psychological impact of somebody like Pepper raising your children? What is the psychological impact of living in a certain social media reality? And how do we find ways to be more human, more authentic, and more real with each other more quickly? This is a challenge. It's an exciting space. And I would like to add to the previous speakers that the Fourth Industrial Revolution isn't just about the different technologies and the augmented realities we're going to live in, but it's going to open all sorts of new exciting ways for us to be human and what that means. So watch the space of UJ, not just for the wonderful technologies that we are going to create, but the new research that we are going to do in how it affects people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. That was the Executive Director, Professor Maria from UP, from the library, from the UJ Library, talking about society and the fourth industrial revolution. Now, it's been an informative and also interesting evening. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to sit back and relax. I'd like to call upon Mr. Mcebisi Solilo, who is an IIS master's student, to actually give us an IIS technology showcase. Take it away.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As has been said, my name is Mcebisi. I'm one of the students that are currently doing their masters in UJ. I'm privileged today to come and present on the topics that are being designed as we speak by students. Some of them are complete by the students in UJ under the IIS department. This is what I'm going to showcase today. As I'm sure has been noted that the previous speakers that just recently passed are very big people. I kind of carry a very heavy burden on my shoulders. What excites me though with this is that I get the privilege to come and talk about the newly built technologies that UJ is busy with, and being part and parcel of that. It excites me to come and tell you of how much we've done and what is there to do. So without going any further, I think I should get to the business of the day. One of the current problems that South Africa faces today, as the stats of 2011, it is recorded that over 3.6% of people have a hearing impairment. That means with the population in South Africa, at about 2 million people have a problem in hearing as we speak. That means the person at the back there, some of them are finding difficulty to hear what I'm currently saying now, which is not so good. This leads to very undesirable ways of reaction. Some of them is having to shout to the person that is not hearing you, which doesn't look so nice at all, and so many problems. The IIS team took this problem to them. It's one of the solutions that it's one of the problems that have gotten solution in the IIS team. I can proudly say that one of our students here has designed a system called Hear It Loud. This is an application that runs on your mobile phone, which allows you to put in your headphones and allows the person who has the hearing impairment to hear you quite clearly as your normal individuals that are hearing you. This system is designed and is fully functional. It's part of the demonstrations we're going to show after the presentations have gone through. Here, you see your typical institution halls. That is your normal university halls. From here, you can see, I'm sure you see as students, you know as students that the only identifier for a room, for example, is the room number that you have on top. There's so much information lacking there. You don't know when your room is being utilized. You don't know when it is booked. At times, as students before, you knew that we use these same rooms to go in and study. Now, what the IIS team has done, one of the students has designed a system that can store the entire timetable for the year of the students and is able to display this information in one mobile application that will sit on top of the room. What this allows you to do is when you get near the room, you are able to tap in. It is interactive with human beings. You are able to tap onto the screen and see the booking of the room as you go through. From this yearly information you get, the data you can get there, you can get your day-to-day data, you can get over a week's data, and even the full year's booking of the specific room we're talking about. That is exciting stuff. Now, as an information just to put out there, for your normal institution, the timetables that you get, maybe some of you don't have an idea of this. A full institution can have over 400 of these Excel spreadsheets of timetable. Now that is a lot. With the system that is currently built, it is able to swallow all of this information, give you the necessary information you require at a tap, and you're able to get everything you require. Sorry, I think I'm going back there. Yes. I think no, we know this one. Eh? We've gone through this one. Once in a while, you've had such a problem before. Yes, this is one of those dilemmas in the toilets, we should call it. What we're seeing here is an individual who's sitting at the toilet and is missing a toilet paper. Now, to put context into this, this is a normal institution setup. This is one floor's setup of toilets. There are so many cubicles, and keeping track of the toilet paper in each and every cubicle. Imagine a case where one is supposed to keep track of these cubicles on all the floors of the building. That becomes tiresome, as one can imagine. Now we've taken this problem from the way, as I had said, it's a toilet problem. We've solved this problem by just merely twisting the first 3 letters of the word and called it an IoT-let, and the solution was there. As can be said, it's not only that. I must mention that the IoT means the Internet of Things. We've managed to create a system that could be able to communicate with each dispenser, that is able to communicate with each other. And when a certain threshold is reached, that means the certain level of the toilet papers is beneath the certain level we require, it gives a notification to the person responsible to refilling those toilet papers. That is a system that is built, it's fully active. It's something we're going to showcase after the presentations. How this communicates with the individual responsible is it sends an SMS on the phone to tell you that a specific dispenser at such a floor, in such a level, is missing toilet papers. Now, another interesting projects that we delve with, we can see power lines there. We think ESCOM immediately. We currently in South Africa have problems. We face dilemmas with the downtime of power supply. And some of these problems, some of the cause of this problem is the time it takes for the supply to come back on, and that is caused at times by the loss of phase in the line or conductor missing. Now the problem, that is not the major problem. The problem is having to find on such major networks, find the exact point and pinpoint where that problem is lying. That is a major dilemma we have. You can find at times you run for over 3 to 4 hours without supply and find that it was a snapped cable in a not so easy to find area. And it took time for the operator to come and fix the problem. Now we've taken this head on also. What we're going to showcase there, a project which was we're currently busy with, is building a UAV from scratch that can be able to do the job that a human being cannot do. A human being cannot cross a river. You can have the fanciest cars, but these power lines, they cross rivers at times. They go to areas that are so difficult to reach. Now we've provided a system that can solve that problem. It's one of the things that we're going to showcase there outside. Now this is nice. These are our wine bottles there. Part of the solution we've come and provided a solution to the wine sellers is to know at all times to what level does he stand with his wines? How consumed are they? At the end of the day, a wine seller, what he's interested in is how much a wine has been drank in a day. And you can imagine, for a person who's running a very big institute, it becomes so tiresome to do just such a job. Now, IIS again has come through with this one. They've been able to design a system that can, with the color of the content inside, the shape of the bottle, are able to give information back to the wine cellar to say that, listen, you are running low in these specific contents that you need to require. This also will be showcased, you'll see outside. Now, this is the last project I will talk on. The current system that we have in our wards, in hospitals, works exactly in this way. Even on your fanciest hospitals, you still get the same treatment. You press a button, you're there, you're sick. You press a button for it to be dialed to the person on the dashboard for them to see. Now imagine this. Someone has pressed the button to ask for some water, and someone else is pressing the very same button and is having a heart attack. From this system, at face value, person on the dashboard, this is treated the same way until they reach a room. That is not practical. You know, it is not efficient. Now we've came in on this one also. We've designed a system that is able to sense the human body, where it is able to check the temperatures, the heart rates of the individual. We've designed system bed sensors, which can detect if whether a person is falling or slipping or any movement that is being done. A chair sensor that is able to sense if whether this person has fallen from the chair or temperature or anything of such. And we're able to even check the room. This is all sent to the cloud via a wireless sensor. On the dashboard, the user is able to see this information there and there. That was amazing for me. Now, this is an interface that you'll get for an individual patient. Notice the fact that we talk about it is able to give you the body temperature of a person. Imagine a person who's having a heart attack then and there. The person on the dashboard is able to get a red alarm to say that there is such a problem currently and such a thing is happening. We've gone to strides to try and come with very, very good projects here. That was my last project. We are always open for ideas, suggestions, even improvements. Please use the link to go through and share ideas, or use the QR code to give us more information. We're always willing to improve. Thank you very much.
That was indeed truly amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Mcebisi. Now, our next speaker is alleged to be feisty. Apparently, she's a fashionista as well. Please, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Dr. Nolita Vuguza, who is the Senior Executive Director for the Office of the Vice Chancellor at the University of Johannesburg.
Thank you, Pumzile, and a good evening to everyone. Grateful thanks to the members of council here present, the members of the ELG, staff of UJ, the choir, colleagues and partners from the industry and government, members of the press here present, students who have worked very hard in putting this together. And last but not least, can I then thank the people who participated here. Pumzile, thank you very much. Speaking of feisty, thank you so much, and I think that you and Pepper make a great pair. And of course, I think Pepper flirts a lot with rolling the eyes, and Pepper is very sensitive, and I think you make a very good pair. So thank you very much for conducting this evening so beautifully. Professor Sina, thank you very much for contextualizing and futuralizing this event, and of course for reminding us that we should think without the box. I still see the box in my mind. And to the Vice Chancellor, the two-in-one Vice Chancellor, Professor Marwala, you're saying for some of us, it is the best time to be alive. And I think that for some of us, indeed, it is the best time to be alive with you in our midst. You are such a rare combination of knowledge and humility. The things you know actually scare me a lot. You know that very well. But I've grown a thick skin since working in your office. You have this tendency when you see people and then you start saying, Nolita, do you know the game theory? And I'm like, but why do you ask me that? You know? And then all of a sudden, when we are sitting in a meeting, then you ask me about the theory of relativity. I mean, you know, I think you must take it easy on these things. I actually now am I thought I was fairly knowledgeable up until I joined UJ and I worked for Professor Marala. So thank you very much for your humble leadership. We really enjoy the things that you know, and the fact that the world acknowledges you that much makes us proud as well. Professor Babu, I don't know if I should believe you or Winston Churchill. You say that he says we must study history, we must study history, and then you say we must study data. I mean, I studied history, so, and then you say it must be replaced by data. Can't we coexist? History and data, I mean, we're still here. But thank you very much for your leadership in this space. For those who don't know, we had a partnership with two sister institutions and one of the industries out there. And then me liking to speak, then I would say, we are leaders of the fourth industrial revolution. I would never say that if Professor Babu was not next to me, because that was the only thing I would say anyway. So thank you very much for being there all the time and supporting my claims of being the leaders on the fourth industrial revolution. Professor Maria, thank you for, and in fact I do agree with you that it is knowledge revolution. I don't think it should be allocated to industry alone. And thank you for agitating for the humanization of technology. I was there with you, I felt you, I'm there. I want that to happen. Tabisi, thank you very much for all the things that the solutions that you are providing, chief of which for us is the toilet paper. I think it's very important. And I think that app will be very busy, of course. And also thank you I thought that the sensors were also coming in very handy. And so, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I think there's an exhibition out there, and I think that there's also something to nibble on. So thank you very much, and have a good, pleasant evening ahead. And drive well safely back home. Thank you.
So, Pepper, did you know that people are sometimes scared of robots?
I have no idea. Do I look scary?
I think people are afraid that robots will take over the world. Will you?
No, we're here to work together with humans to make life easier. You've been watching too many sci-fi movies.
Well, nevertheless, you've been an amazing co-host. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through to the launch for the Institute of Intelligent Systems. We have an expo outside and also an exhibition taking place. Please feel free to take selfies with my co-host, Pepper. To officially close off the event, I'd like to call upon the UJ Choir to bless us with music.